The message from London was short. If Cuthbert is giving you trouble, have him eliminated. Virginia Hall stared at the words. Then she almost laughed. London had misunderstood. Cuthbert wasn't a traitor, he wasn't a German officer, he wasn't even human. Cuthbert was her artificial leg. Gestapo knew there was a woman operating somewhere inside occupied France. They knew she organized resistance networks. They knew she moved weapons, money, intelligence, and people beneath their noses. They even knew she walked with a limp. What they didn't know was how to catch her. Her name was Virginia Hall. She was an American rejected from her dream career because of a disability. She became a British secret agent before the United States had fully entered the war. She built an underground network in a city crawling with informants. And when the Nazis finally closed in, she crossed a frozen mountain range on one leg. But that escape was not the end of her story. It was only the moment she became more dangerous. The woman in the wanted posters. Somewhere in occupied France, German security officers circulated a warning. A foreign woman was helping the resistance. She was believed to be highly trained. She changed identities. She moved between safe houses. She had connections across the country, and she walked with a noticeable limp. Agents searched railway stations, police questioned travelers. Informants watched hotels and cafes. The Nazis reportedly gave her a name, the Limping Lady. But by the time they understood how important she was, Virginia Hall had already spent months building the machinery of resistance around them. And she had done it while hiding behind one of the most ordinary disguises imaginable. She claimed to be a journalist. That cover allowed her to travel, ask questions, and speak with officials without appearing immediately suspicious. But the newspaper articles were not the real mission. The real mission existed in apartments, back rooms, railway stations, and coded messages sent after dark. To understand why Britain trusted her with such a dangerous assignment, we have to return to the moment when Virginia's original dream was destroyed. Not by the Germans, by her own government. The accident that changed everything years before the war, Virginia Hall wanted to become an American diplomat. She studied languages, she traveled through Europe, she worked at American consulates and learned how embassies operated from the inside. She seemed to be building exactly the career she wanted. Then in 1933, while serving in Turkey, a hunting accident changed her life. Her shotgun discharged unexpectedly. The injury became so severe that doctors amputated her left leg below the knee. Virginia was 27. She received a wooden prosthetic leg. She named it Cuthbert. For many people, the accident would have ended any ambition involving travel, danger, or physical hardship. Virginia returned to work. She continued pursuing the Foreign Service. But the United States government rejected her application because applicants were required to have all 4 limbs. Her ability did not matter. Her language skills did not matter. Her experience did not matter. A regulation had decided what she could never become. But that rejection created an unexpected question. What happens when someone told she cannot serve her country finds another country willing to take the risk? Britain's unlikely recruit. When Germany invaded France in 1940, Virginia was there. She volunteered as an ambulance driver and witnessed the collapse of the country firsthand. Roads filled with refugees, cities fell. The French government surrendered. Virginia escaped to Britain. There she came to the attention of the Special Operations Executive, the secret organization created to encourage sabotage and resistance across occupied Europe. The SOE needed people who could disappear into foreign societies, people who understood languages, people who could assess character quickly, people willing to operate without protection if something went wrong. Virginia's disability might have disqualified her from American diplomacy. To British intelligence, it was only one more problem to solve. In August 1941, she entered Vichy, France, using the cover identity of an American correspondent. Officially, she was gathering news. Unofficially, she was becoming one of Britain's first female field agents in France. And almost immediately, she discovered something terrifying. The greatest danger was not always the German soldier in uniform. It was the neighbor who asked too many questions. Lyon, a city of shadows. Virginia established herself in Lyon. The city appeared less dangerous than German-occupied Paris, but that appearance was deceptive. Vichy police monitored foreigners. German intelligence operated through agents and collaborators. Hotels recorded guests. Letters could be opened. Telephone conversations could be overheard. A careless meeting could destroy an entire network. Virginia began carefully building contacts. One person could locate a safe apartment. Another could obtain false papers. Someone else could guide a downed Allied pilot towards Spain. A railway worker might report German troop movements. A doctor could treat an injured operative without contacting authorities. No single contact knew everything. That was essential. If one person was arrested, the entire network could not be exposed immediately. Virginia helped move money, radios, documents, and people. She arranged safe houses. She supported resistance organizers. She assisted agents arriving from Britain. She helped endangered airmen escape. But there was a problem. Every successful operation created another trail, and the Germans were beginning to notice the pattern. The network begins to collapse. The Gestapo did not need to find Virginia immediately. They only needed to capture someone who could lead them closer. Across France, resistance networks were being infiltrated. Agents disappeared. Meeting places became traps. Some prisoners broke under interrogation. Others unknowingly trusted double agents. One of the most dangerous figures hunting Allied networks in Lyon was Klaus Barbie, the Gestapo officer who would later become infamous as the Butcher of Lyon. The city became increasingly hostile. Virginia changed apartments. She altered routines. She avoided predictable routes. She learned to observe reflections in shop windows to identify anyone following her. But she could not simply disappear. Other people depended on her. Then came a devastating blow. A meeting was compromised. Agents and resistance organizers were captured. The underground system Virginia had helped build was suddenly being torn apart. For a time, she was among the few remaining operatives capable of communicating effectively with London. The Gestapo now understood that a central organizer was still free. They did not have her full identity. But they had one dangerous clue. The woman they wanted walked with a limp. And then Germany occupied the rest of France. Virginia's remaining protection vanished overnight. The only way out. In November 1942, German forces moved into Vichy territory. Virginia could no longer remain in Lyon. Her face was becoming known. Her network had suffered arrests. The Gestapo was searching for a foreign woman with a distinctive walk. She needed to reach Spain. The safest route was anything but safe. It crossed the Pyrenees. The mountain journey was difficult even for healthy travelers. Virginia would attempt it with a wooden leg. She moved through freezing terrain with a guide, climbing steep paths while snow, rock, and exhaustion punished every step. Her prosthesis caused intense pain. The straps damaged her skin. Cold made the climb even harder. During the journey, she sent a message to London explaining that Cuthbert was causing trouble. The reply came back suggesting that Cuthbert should be eliminated if necessary. The operators in London had assumed Cuthbert was a person. Virginia kept moving, step after step. Behind her was occupied France. Ahead of her was Spain. Between them stood mountains capable of killing her without the Gestapo ever needing to fire a shot. She survived the crossing, but when she reached Spain, freedom did not arrive immediately. Spanish authorities arrested her for entering the country illegally. Even after escaping the Nazis, Virginia found herself behind bars, the spy who refused to retire. Eventually, diplomatic intervention secured her release. Virginia returned to Britain. By any reasonable standard, she had already done enough. She had survived occupied France. She had built resistance networks. She had escaped a Gestapo manhunt. She had crossed the Pyrenees with a prosthetic leg. British intelligence believed returning her to France would be too dangerous. Her face and her limp might expose her. Virginia disagreed. She wanted to go back. When the SOE hesitated, she turned to the Office of Strategic Services, the American intelligence organization that would later help give rise to the CIA. The OSS accepted her, but returning required more than a new passport. The Germans were looking for an elegant foreign woman, so Virginia transformed herself into someone they would overlook. She darkened or altered her appearance. She dressed as an elderly rural woman. She changed the way she moved. According to accounts of her preparation, she even modified her teeth to make the disguise more convincing. Her new identity was Marcel Montagne. Her code name was Diane. In March 1944, she returned to France by sea. The woman the Gestapo had failed to catch had willingly entered their territory again, back behind enemy lines. This time, Virginia worked in rural central France. The danger had changed. German patrols were nervous, resistance groups were growing, an Allied invasion was approaching, though few knew exactly when or where it would begin. Virginia carried radio equipment and transmitted intelligence to London. Wireless operators were among the most vulnerable agents in occupied Europe. German direction-finding teams could detect a transmitter if it remained active too long. Every message started a race. Virginia had to encode the information, transmit it, confirm reception, then shut down and move before the Germans located the signal. She coordinated supply drops. She helped arm and organize Maquis resistance fighters. Weapons, explosives, radios, and supplies descended by parachute into dark fields. But receiving them was only the beginning. The equipment had to be hidden. The fighters had to be trained. Targets had to be chosen, and every new recruit could be courageous. Or could be an informer. Then came the moment everything had been preparing for. June 6th, 1944, D-Day. As Allied soldiers landed in Normandy, resistance networks across France attacked the infrastructure supporting the German army. Railway lines were disrupted, communications were cut, roads became dangerous. German units attempting to move toward the invasion faced sabotage, confusion, and delay. Virginia's work was no longer simply gathering information. She was helping turn occupied territory into a battlefield behind German lines. But the Germans still had one final opportunity to find her, and this time she was no longer working alone. The network becomes an army. Virginia helped coordinate resistance groups that had once operated as scattered cells. These fighters knew the landscape. They knew hidden paths, isolated farms, railway junctions, and mountain roads. What they often lacked was equipment, organization, and reliable contact with the Allies. Virginia helped provide all three. She arranged weapons drops. She transmitted reports. She coordinated sabotage. She worked with teams preparing for direct action as Allied forces advanced through France. German troops faced attacks far from the conventional front. Convoys were ambushed. Supply routes became unreliable. Rail traffic was interrupted. The resistance forced the occupation authorities to defend territory they had once considered secure. Virginia had entered France disguised as a harmless older woman. Behind that disguise was an intelligence officer helping organize armed opposition. The Gestapo had once searched for the limping Lady of Luyen. Now she was operating under another identity in another region, directing a network they could not clearly see. The woman they had failed to capture was helping dismantle their control of France. The reward she didn't want publicized. After the war, Virginia Hall received the Distinguished Service Cross for extraordinary heroism. She was the only civilian woman to receive the decoration for service during World War II. President Harry Truman reportedly wanted a public ceremony. Virginia preferred a private one. Public attention was dangerous for someone whose career in intelligence might continue. So OSS Chief William Donovan presented the medal quietly. There were no crowds, no dramatic speech broadcast to the nation, no triumphant return worthy of a Hollywood ending. That suited Virginia. Her greatest achievements had depended on remaining unnoticed. After the war, she joined the Central Intelligence Agency and continued working in intelligence until her retirement. But even there, her abilities were not always used fully. The same institutions that celebrated her courage could still restrict her because she was a woman. She had survived the Gestapo. She had overcome a physical disability. She had operated behind enemy lines twice. Yet bureaucracy remained one adversary she could never completely defeat. Final reflection. The Gestapo searched for a dangerous allied agent. They imagined someone who looked dangerous, someone physically unstoppable, someone who would stand out. Instead, the person they could not catch was a woman rejected from diplomatic service because her government believed she was physically unfit. Virginia Hall's greatest advantage was not that nobody noticed her limp. It was that almost everyone underestimated the woman who had it. Her artificial leg did not make the missions easier. It made every mountain, every escape, and every hour spent behind enemy lines more difficult. But Cuthbert never stopped her. Neither did the Foreign Service, neither did the Gestapo. And perhaps that is why Virginia Hall's story remained hidden for so long. The world often looks for history's heroes in uniforms behind podiums or at the head of armies. Sometimes they are walking alone through an occupied city, carrying coded messages, pretending to be someone the enemy would never think to fear. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden stories history tried to forget, subscribe to Obscurum Atlas, because the most dangerous person in the room is sometimes the one everyone has already dismissed.